Morel finally coming back down to planet Earth. Thank you. 0 for 4.
Yeah, he had a lot of strikeouts.
I mean, this guy is not the next Jackie Robinson here. Let's pump the brakes. Seiya Suzuki 2 for 3. Disgusting.
Say is good, Bob. I don't know what you're talking about.
Eugenio Suarez, after getting done shredding me. Oh, for thank you, Eugenio. Just absolutely gross. Guy literally single-handedly like sunk me because he got 6 RBIs in like the last 2 or 3 days of the matchup when I was planning a comeback with a dong. Oh, I was so sick after that one. I was actually really sick though when I said I'm going to be sick if Christopher Morel hits a solo shot, and then immediately 5 seconds after I sent that, Christopher Morel belts one into the seats,
Yeah, that he did.
and I was literally over a trash can. I mean, why do I just have a knack for this stuff? For saying that it's going to happen and then just happening.
Can you predict me winning 8-1-1, perhaps?
Well, I'd say, it probably is going to happen at the rate this is going. I mean, we're probably going to have some lineup. We've already had lineup malfeasance today. Alec Manoah shelled. Thank you, Alec.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, I watched a couple of his outings and they have just been bad.
Yeah, it's not been good.
Starling Marte finally got a new player glasses, 2 for 5. Thank you, Starling. Willie Adames not doing diddly.
No,
1-4.
I would like to move Willie Adames. He's extremely frustrating. Because when
Is the talent there, Derek? Is the talent there?
I mean, 2 home runs in the last 6 games, but when he doesn't hit a home run, he goes 0 for 4
Over.
with 4 Ks. I mean,
Meanwhile,
he's got 9 home runs, but he's only hitting 204. What am I supposed to do with that?
I mean, meanwhile, Dennis getting beat by the Red Hat Brigade in the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah. Brutal.
Oh no, Bryce Harper yabba dabba doo on him today. Oh no. CJ Abrams still on his bye. Over 4.
CJ Abrams. It was so funny. Ah, CJ Abrams is not getting traded for a dirty sock.
Well, looks like Anthony Santander's just played himself into the lineup for tomorrow. Got to ride a hot bat.
Gotta ride the hot bats.
Now that I've got the best catcher in the league, Dick Danker City, it's all up from here. He's gonna motivate from behind the dish and turn our team around.
For your sake, I hope it happens. I am ready to roll whenever you are.
Just need a couple more yabos from Byron Buxton. He's been turning around a little bit.
He has. He went, 0 for 28 at one point?
I mean, he was literally 0 for 28 at one point, and now we're at turning it around. Also, a bit of a turning it around from George Springer, which we love to see.
Yeah, he's turned it around big time, actually.
4 for 5 2 days ago.
Yeah, he's turned it around big time. Yeah, Byron's going to turn it around, Bob, and then he's going to get hurt, so enjoy it while it lasts.
Correct. Which is why we have old, faithful, and reliable Harold Ramirez ready to serve in at a moment's notice.
Yeah, Byron's going to pull a hamstring trying to steal a base, and then all that effort the Twins have put into using Byron as a DH only to prevent him from getting injured is going to go out the wayside.
Well, he had some calf tightness the other day. Yeah. Got held out.
Dangerous.
Immediate yankage from the lineup.
He's gonna snap a Achilles, no doubt.
Can we get Francisco Lindor going with a 2 Yabo day tomorrow at Coors Field? I would think.
Could be.
Oh, Alex Bregman at Oakland tomorrow. Oh, we need Munch City.
Are the matchups favorable, Bob? Are the matchups favorable for a comeback?
I mean, we've got, let's see. Well, we're going to have to play Jake Cronenworth at second base because Luis has got some tightness, unfortunately.
Oh no.
So, but Jake did have a hit today and I think a walk.
Massive.
So I'm not too mad at that. We are looking for a second baseman. We've been hot on the trail of a second baseman, but the problem is second basemen in this league are Stain McGain.
Correct.
There are not very many good second basemen. The more I look into it. Could be time to take a flyer on John Birdie.
Oh yikes.
For seven stolen bags, Derek.
You're down bad if you're going down the John Birdie rabbit hole.
I might be just going for walk machine Miguel Vargas.
Could be.
Could be the move at least. At least he'll get a couple walks. The old Max Muncy syndrome, as I like to call it.
Very thankful for Max Muncy.
Dong or walk for Max Muncy.
Max Muncy has 17 extra base hits this year. 15 of them are homers.
Correct. Because the guy doesn't do anything but swing for the fucking fences.
And, I mean, to his credit, he's connected. He's hitting 204. Thank you, Max. Very cool.
That was predictable.
But I mean,
Derek, he got a fucking seasonal allergies, and then he couldn't hit.
He's literally he is averaging an RBI and a hit, and
oh my God.
He has 32 hits, 36 RBI, 32 walks, and 15 homers. So
That's
he has
so disgusting.
He's homering 1 out of every 2 hits, and every hit is going for an RBI on average.
Oh my God. It's so gross.
It is gross.
It's like literally Dennis's lineup. Dennis's lineup is literally
feast or
3 hits a night, 4 hits a night, 3 dogs.
Correct. With 7 walks.
Like every day.
With 7 walks.
7 walks. Correct. You can just never come back because like your guys are slapping singles in for like 1 RBI every couple hits. His guys 3-run shot.
Yeah.
Walk. And you just hope that you beat him in hits.
It's tough in the streets, Bob. Tough in the streets. But yeah. You got everything set?
Yep, I'm just pulling up my my right bench baller on my other screen here. Or okay. I guess on my other tab now, my phone. But
okay.
All right, I'm ready to roll.
All right. I don't even have to do a countdown because I'm the one in charge, so I can just roll it whenever.
That's right.
All right, let me make sure my audio's being captured. It sure is. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite YouTube podcast, Garbage Time Takes. You'll notice, those of you who are returning viewers, we are missing a good friend of ours. Dennis is not here today, but we do have Mr. Bobby here with me to run a two-host podcast today. Bob, first things first, hopefully a congratulations to Dennis on his thesis defense for his masters. We'll see in T-minus 12 hours here whether he's done it or not. But I think because Dennis is not here, Bob, the only thing that makes sense to start with is golf. In fact,
I think so.
I mean, Dennis is our golf guru here on the pod. We miss him greatly this week because, Bob, LIV Golf won the PGA. LIV Golf, Brooks Koepka, I mean, just an absolutely dominant Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Held off a strong run from Victor Hovland, held off strong play from Scotty Scheffler, and Brooks is back, Bob. 5-time major champion Brooks Koepka. I mean,
count him.
Count it.
5 times.
5 times.
Shout out to Booker T.
That's right. I was just about to say 5-time. That's right, Bob. 5-time major champion Brooks Koepka takes the PGA, much to Dennis's dismay. Bob, before we get into statement from one Dennis Weaver, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I would like to give Dennis the benefit of the doubt, do the thesis defenses tomorrow. But, I think that this absence tonight could potentially be partially because he doesn't want to show his face in these parts. I mean, we'll get to the statement, which is more like a surrender here in a few seconds. But, Dennis, I know you're listening. This is this is this is pride coming before the fall, buddy, because you've you've looked you've looked very vulnerable the last couple majors. You got lucky once with old Brooks having a little bit of a fall off, but then Phil nearly caught you. I don't forget about that. People don't give that enough credit. Phil nearly had something happen at the Masters, but now you can run, but you can't hide, Dennis, because Brooks is back. And Derek and I believe this is what Derek had said, but we've always been Brooks Koepka fans, if I do recall.
We have.
And Brooks, when he puts it together, Derek, scary material because this guy can start racking up birdies with the best of them. And it was just nice to see a complete performances, a lot of good storylines that came out of the PGA Championship. But, I do find it kind of ironic that the PGA Championship just so happened to be won by a player of LIV Golf. Derek or Dennis, you are in trouble.
Yeah, Dennis certainly has a knack for eluding podcasts in which something controversial happened to him. I remember earlier. I mean, it was a couple months ago. I think UC basketball had an embarrassing loss of some sort. Dennis wasn't on the pod. There was something else. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I know we gave Dennis a good roasting for not being here. But Dennis did fortunately provide us with a written statement.
Thank you,
I'm
Dennis.
I'm pulling it up now. Let me hit the share screen on the Zoom so that it actually shows up for everyone. Give me 1 second. Here we go. So this should, yes, this should be up. Let me clear this. All right. So I'll read it out loud for those of you who are blind. Like Shane Rose, I'm sure he has a second grade reading level. May 25th, 2023. Dear esteemed colleagues, this letter represents a formal statement by one Mr. Dennis Weaver regarding recent occurrences within the golf community. As many of you likely know, a player (parentheses who shall here remain nameless) end parentheses
Wow.
associated with the rival LIV Golf Series emerged victorious at the PGA Championship, not to mention the relative success of several other defective golfers. While I will not at this point retract previous statements that the LIV Tour is quote unquote bogus and pathetic, end quote, this success does require an unprecedented shift in perspective.
Oh,
Namely,
wow.
namely, that the golfers themselves who have decided to leave the PGA Tour are still incredibly capable of competing with and even beating the best golfers in the world. Despite this acknowledgement, I hold LIV to overall be bad for the sport of golf and a disgrace in every other way. Kindest
Wow.
regards, Mr. Weaver. Bob, some fighting words from one Dennis Weaver. Um, I mean, calling LIV Golf a disgrace, but also at the same time recognizing that the best players go to LIV Golf, Bob.
You know, Dennis, Dennis had a long history of this podcast basically saying stuff along the lines of that LIV golfers were washed and they couldn't compete. They couldn't do anything. They were all has-beens. They wanted to secure a bag. They were big names, but they were has-beens and they didn't have any talent. Well, it's not a good look when the has-beens are ruling the day, especially not at a tiddlywink event. This is a
Correct.
major we're talking about here. This is the best of the best show up. And very much. I mean, we just saw the Masters. There was where the PGA took that one, but in a very close fashion. And then we saw the PGA, this most recent tournament, which LIV took. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but did I see that a current LIV golfer holds another major title at the moment?
I'll have to look.
Maybe it was just a incorrect Twitter user that tweeted that, but it, at least one of the major championships now are now held by good old Live Golf, and for being washed. And here's the thing, Derek. Here's the thing. Dennis, when he gave his preludes about Live Golf, he said there was only really one player that even concerned him from Live Golf, and that one player hasn't been anywhere near mentioned in any of these tournaments. So if that was the one guy that scared him, I got news for you, Dennis. You might have to be worried about a few more guys too.
Correct. Yes, Bob. Whoever tweeted that out was correct. Cam Smith, the current reigning champion of the Open, not to be confused with the U.S. Open. Those are two separate majors. Cam Smith won the Open in 2022, so Live Golf currently holds 2 of the 4 major championships as it stands at this
Not a
time.
great look, Dennis. Not a great look. Um, you know, I appreciate your statement, Dennis. But this was definitely a piece of humble pie for old Dennis Weaver. I wish we had something riding on this. We picked the wrong tournament, Derek.
I
We were
know.
one tournament early.
We were.
Dennis would have had to be sending money in to get a Live Golf shirt, and we would have been, it would have been sweet old retribution. Derek, your
Unfortunate.
thoughts.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, give credit to us. I mean, we were very high on Brooks in the
We were.
Masters.
We were.
Even that Thursday pod, Brooks was a guy that I
Watch
know I
out.
certainly said watch out for. He unfortunately wasn't able to get it done then, but he got it done now. And, Bob, maybe there's something to be said for, only playing 3 rounds of golf in a tournament instead of 4. Maybe there's something to be said for, more relaxed atmosphere, team golf. And that way, when the live golfers come to play in the major tournaments, they're able to, be perhaps maybe a little
Rested.
bit fresher, more rested than the PGA guys. And, you know, this could be a monumental shift, Bob. If I was Dennis, I would be very panicked. I would be very stressed that Live Golf may have a major championship takeover in the not so near future. Not to mention, Bob, Brooks Koepka is qualified for the Ryder Cup. I know we brought that up on the last pod about the potential of Brooks being invited to be a Ryder Cup member. And if Dennis is a true fan of golf that represents
Yes.
the United States of America,
Where
then
Brooks is a citizen of.
he is a true red-blooded American, Brooks Koepka. If Dennis is serious about winning and supporting the United States golf team, then, to me it would make sense that he would be clamoring for Brooks Koepka to be a part of the Ryder Cup team. I mean, a runner-up finish at the Masters plus a win at the PGA Championship, guys playing some of the best golf in the world right now. You'd be a fool not to take him, Bob.
You would definitely be a fool not to take him. Something tells me Dennis might have an affinity for Team Europe pretty soon. After all of that,
Are we gonna have to start calling him Benedict Weaver?
Benedict Arnold Weaver, old Dennis at it again. But yeah, really, I think this is so. I mean, Dennis has said that he maintains that live is bad for golf. I think this makes golf so much more interesting.
Competition always is better for anything.
Because not only, I mean, because the thing with all individual sports, including golf, is just that like you get behind certain players, and especially with golf, it's so variable who could necessarily have a good day that given day. I mean, it's so hard to maintain top form because you're just playing the course, and game of golf is so very, very difficult. But now you have, it's almost like, because of this live versus PGA divide, you've got like, it's almost like a team game in a way. And if you are somebody that says, "Oh, Live Golf is, providing, an alternative, and they're also providing very competitive golf and fun players to watch too." Then you're like, okay, you can kind of get behind some of the Live guys as well. Or if you're like Dennis and were there when they founded the PGA and will never root for anything else, you will clamor for the PGA guys to win at all costs, and it kind of increases the allure, I think, in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I know that it certainly increased my following of the game since that happened. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Not particularly. Um, I've always loosely followed golf. I'm a regular casual Sunday golf observer, final round, championship round golf observer. Obviously, for the majors, I follow them a little more closely, but golf isn't my sport nearly as much as Dennis's. But I will say, and I'm pretty sure not to, we don't have to talk about golf too much longer because we can only
Sure.
have so much golf talk without Dennis. But I do remember back when Live Golf was first announced. This would be, I mean, many, many
Yep.
podcasts ago. Um, I think one of the main points that I sort of, carried the water for was that competition is good. So just the live existing is good for golf because one, it makes the PGA have to up their game, which they did. They increased their prize pools. Dennis may have more thoughts on the sincerity of the prize pool raises and whether they were substantial enough. But there were certain little things that Live Golf did that made the game of golf more exciting as a whole. And, when a lot of discussion comes up every major, how are the PGA guys going to react to the Live guys being there? Is there going to be any animosity, any tension? Those types of things bring more attention, more publicity. And Bob, there's no such thing as bad publicity, especially not for the sport of golf, where it's a rather casual game. The hardcore fans are the ones who are at the golf course, um, and so being able to bring more eyes to the game is always a good thing. Any other closing thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, and maybe this is just kind of a preview because Dennis, I know you're taking the time to listen after the fact of this. I'm sure. Um, Dennis and I had a nice discussion not too long ago about some of the changes that the PGA was making and some potential changes that they could make um, to kind of make the game a bit more interesting and kind of pair it for more accessibility to the fans and maybe bring some more eyes to some of these smaller events because I know it's a major. Everybody's if anybody's kind of even the casual golf fans, like you said, Derek, are kind of following the majors a bit more closely because it's the major. But golf has so many events. Just take a look. Keep an eye out in the future for potential garbage time takes debates um, with Dennis and I because we had a really nice conversation about that, and we might have to bring some content about that discussion to the channel for our viewers.
Absolutely. Bob, do you want to do the NBA or the NHL first?
Let's go ahead with the NHL, Derek. Let's go ahead with the NHL.
Okay.
Because I was just about to say, there was a fun video of Brooks at the NHL right after he had won.
There was indeed.
So I was gonna use that kind of as a segue to get into it.
I mean, sounds good to me. Brooks Koepka, noted Florida Panthers fan, Bob. The Florida Panthers have completed the 4-game sweep of the Carolina Hurricanes. Kachuk with an absolute beauty of a goal in the waning seconds of the third period to send the Panthers off into the sunset. Just it was a 4-game sweep, obviously, but each and every game was basically down to the wire. I mean, we had the game 1 marathon, 5 overtime game. Game 2 also went to overtime. I don't really remember game 3, but that one also, I mean, we're a sports podcast. Can't be getting these types of things wrong, Bob. Of course, it gives me the Carolina Panthers, as if anybody cares about that poverty organization. yeah, game. So I have it here. Game one, obviously, like I said, the marathon overtime game, 4 overtime game. Game two, 2-1, one overtime. Game three, 1-0, no overtime. Game four, 4-3, no overtimes. Absolutely brutal if you're a Canes fan, being so close in each and every single one of those games and just not being able to pull it off. And then for the Florida Panthers, they were the best team in the NHL last year, at least by record in the regular season, and weren't able to make a cup run then. This year, a lot of the same core pieces were still there. Also, bringing Kachuk in with that trade with the Flames was, an unprecedented move over the offseason that has certainly yielded them really, really good results. And the Florida Panthers, they're a year late, but better late than never, and they're in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Bob, any thoughts on the Panthers?
It's been a really fun story to watch. I mean, we caught the end of that game of the marathon that was that first game, and the hype around that finish was unlike any other hockey I've ever watched before, and I'm really glad to have watched that. I mean, there's nothing quite like good goaltending, Derek. And
Correct.
I'm a sucker for good goalies, and it's been a pleasure to watch. I mean, just with all these overtime battles, the goalie play has really been highlighted. The 1-0 games, and then of course the other two overtime battles that you talked about, and of course the really close games all around. I don't know, Derek. Maybe this is just me, and you can tell me maybe a little bit better than I could say. But the hype around this Stanley Cup playoff run has just felt different this year. I don't know what it is. There's just been a lot of really intriguing matchups, with the expansion franchises being in it, and just the upset, some very good teams going down early in the playoffs that people weren't expecting, and now just, of course, the Panthers making a very crazy run with very, very close games, and then of course my Vegas Golden Knights, who are just rock solid, always there. It's been really, really fun to watch, and I think I think Dennis said he had the Canes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember
Uh,
either. I
I,
don't
I
even remember my own predictions at this point.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I think that you were both saying that you guys had the Canes. I don't really know much about either of the teams, so I'm just kind of noting my observations from afar. But the Panthers have certainly had a lot of hype around it. I'm very, very glad to see the Stanley Cup final, because I think this is going to be very intriguing, Derek.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, I do remember. I know I for sure said that the winner of the Devils Kane series was my pick to go to the finals. Throw that one right out the window. Um, but yeah, I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky, Bob, you mentioned it. Goaltending, extremely elite from Sergei Bobrovsky. I'm sure Dennis is doing a little fist pump right now. As a lukewarm Columbus Blue Jackets fan, Sergei Bobrovsky, former goaltender for the Blue Jackets. I mean, the Stanley Cup playoffs are about getting hot at the right time. The Panthers, towards the end of the regular season, again, they were the 8 seed, last team into the playoffs, had to go through who everyone thought was the juggernaut in the Boston Bruins, and now it turns out maybe the Florida Panthers were the juggernaut all along and we just never knew it. But I mean, that's what it really comes down to in the Cup playoffs, getting hot at the right time, playing together, full unit, but elite goaltending is what separates the, cup contenders from the great teams. And Sergei Bobrovsky standing on his head all series. Not to discredit the Hurricanes goalie either, he's had some fantastic performances. Um, but yeah, it's an intriguing it's intriguing. The Panthers also went through the Toronto Maple Leafs, another 100-point team from the regular season. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool for the Panthers. Always like Roberto Luongo, who had played for some time in the Florida organization. And I'll be interested to see who they get to face, Bob, because the Dallas Stars tonight forced a game six. They have now brought the series to 3-2, I believe. Let me double check again. I believe it was an overtime win. And it was. They won 3-2 in overtime, and I was wrong. They forced Game 5. So they're still down 3-1. The Vegas Golden Knights have really controlled the series to start. It was looking for all the way up until tonight that perhaps we would have had two Stanley Cup sweeps in the conference finals to reach the final. The Golden Knights have won 4-3 in overtime, 3-2 in overtime, 4-0 in regulation, and then the Stars won 3-2 in overtime tonight. Lots of overtime games in the conference finals, really elite playoff hockey, and that's what you like to see. I'm not even going to really lie. I haven't really been following this series that closely. I just keep seeing that the Vegas Golden Knights win and taking a deep sigh because I would like them not to win. But shout out to my buddy Adrian, who is from Vegas and is a Las Vegas Golden Knights fan. So I guess for him, I could concede it. But Bob, our noted Las Vegas Golden Knights supporter, your thoughts?
I've been really happy for you in the sense that you didn't want anything Dallas uh, happening this series, and for the most part, it's been pretty much nothing Dallas. Um, they got a cheap one tonight, but tomorrow or in a couple of days, I think Vegas is going to finish this out. Derek, what's with these overtime games? Free hockey has been rampant these playoffs. I mean, I don't know. I am not a historian of the NHL, but this has got to be up there with some of the busiest overtime series that we've ever seen because
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
just
what? 2 out of 4 in the Panthers went to overtime. 3 out of the 4 so far have went to overtime in this series. I don't have any quick stats on me to say
no
this is the
sure.
most in the overtime in a conference finals, but like we said in the past couple of podcasts, these have just been a really good Stanley Cup playoffs outside of the second round where we had a lot of blowouts and even though the series themselves were close, the games within the series were not really that
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
The games themselves were not that competitive. And here, it's the exact opposite. The series has not been close, but the games within the series have been extremely close and extremely competitive. So yeah, lots of really good playoff hockey. If you haven't watched yet, start watching now because the Stanley Cup playoffs are going to be some of the best hockey of the entire season for sure. Any other closing thoughts before we move on to the NBA, Bob?
no more from me.
All right. I guess just in the spirit of Miami, we'll start with the Heat Celtics series. The Celtics, Bob, have taken 2 games. They're not dead yet. 3-2. It's really anybody's series. No team has ever come down in the playoffs back from 3-0, Bob. Boston with a rather, handy 13-point win, rather stress-free. I mean, breaking out a 15-point lead to start the first quarter. Jason Tatum finally, stepping up and realizing he's Jason Tatum. 20 points from Marcus Smart, 20 points from Derek White, 20 points from Jaylen Brown, 20 points from Jason Tatum, Bob. It's going to be tough to beat if you're the Miami Heat.
Absolutely, and this series has been very confusing to me in a lot of ways, um, because it, it's so on brand, but it's also just confusing because the Miami Heat, the story with them is that, obviously the 8th seed, very much the underdog, playoff Jimmy Butler's come in and just basically, you know, everybody was kind of fast asleep on the Heat and they've just kind of came and torn through everybody. Um, and, everybody was like, okay, well, the joyride's over. It's time for the Celtics to put them in their place, the 1 seed, obviously. But that didn't happen. And, obviously they jumped out to that quick 3-0 lead. And Boston has had, um, obviously they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they have had a lot of games this season, and even games during the playoffs where people have just said, "What?" Like the Boston Celtics just haven't shown up. They've got all the talent in the world. Jason Tatum, AWOL, Jaylen Brown, AWOL. and then somehow they're dropping games that really they just had no business dropping. And
Yeah,
it kind of looked
I mean,
that
Joe
way.
Mazzulla came out and said what? We've won
He's lost a
six.
team.
We've won 6 out of 8 quarters or something like that. So
Yeah, and the Boston Celtics, in my mind, have kind of built up. I mean, it's hard to say this, I know, because they're 3-2 in a conference finals, but to me, I view the Boston Celtics as choke artists, and it's very predictable when you have you know a team that's just playing hot like the Heat, and then choke artists like, in my opinion, like the Boston Celtics, that the Heat were going to jump all over them, especially because they were massive underdogs, and they kind of did. I mean, the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, might not even made it to this point if the 76ers weren't even bigger choke artists than them, in my mind. But now we're in a 3-2 series, and it's kind of gotten to this point in my mind. Clearly, Boston has all the talent in the world, and they're more than capable of beating the Miami Heat. But they're also fighting history, because history would tell you that no team has ever done it. And also, my mind is telling me the Boston Celtics are choke artists. But so I'm very, very conflicted about this. It's a long way of saying I'm very conflicted about this, Derek. Um, Gun to my head, you ask me what I think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen is a game seven, and I think that the Miami Heat are going to put them away in a game seven. Um, I think I'm just gonna let my mind telling me choke artists and history telling me it's not gonna happen. Never been done before, and I'm gonna let that tell me Boston's gonna make it one more game interesting. They're gonna give everybody the illusion that they're going to do it, Derek. They're gonna get the road win. They're gonna come home, and playoff Jimmy's gonna put them to sleep.
Bob, I'll do you one better. Everyone who is betting on the Denver Nuggets to win the NBA championship, get your futures in now because the Miami Heat are going to win game 6. They're going to win game 6, and your value, your return on the Nuggets winning the championship is going to be substantially decreased as the odds favor them greatly once the Heat close this series out. So this is free garbage time takes your money even before we get into garbage time takes your money, Bob. Get your bets in on the Denver Nuggets right now because they will not be facing the Boston Celtics in the first week of June, and the Miami Heat aren't going to let it get to a game 7. I think like I said, I didn't watch this game, haven't watched either of the past couple games. But really what it comes down to is the Heat are 3-0 when they score over 100 points and
Yep.
0-2 when they score under 100 points. So perhaps if the Miami Heat could just score a little more, because it's not like Boston's dropping fat 120s on them or anything. I mean,
No,
only
because the Heat are good defensively.
only 110 tonight. I mean, 116 in Game 4. But the Heat have been really good defensively. 116 is the highest Boston has gotten this series. If their offense just puts it together for 2 or 3 strong quarters, they can afford maybe a mediocre quarter somewhere in the middle. But they can't afford to go down 15 off rip. That's for sure. Um, but yeah, I think Eric Spoelstra, perhaps maybe the Heat weren't playing with as much urgency the past 2 games. I didn't watch, so I can't say that for certain. But the pressure is definitely on them. I mean, you don't want it to go to Game 7 and be the team with all the pressure of the record books and being the first team to ever give up a 3-0 lead. Um, I'm sure it'll happen sometime, and one team eventually is going to be the team that gives up a 3-0 lead. But my money is not on the Miami Heat being that team. I think playoff Jimmy's going to show up in Game 6 um, and send Boston home. So that's the way I see it. We'll see how it plays out. Bob, LeBron James is an absolute jackwagon. And here's why. Here's why. I'm sure you
Okay.
already know where I'm going with this. I'm sure you already know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have an inkling. But I'm going to tell you why. LeBron James is a master media narrative controller.
I knew it. Yep.
A
Yep. I knew
master
it.
media narrative controller. Instead of this entire week being about how the Lakers got swept, whether or not it impacts LeBron's legacy, I don't even care about that. I don't even care about that, Bob. But the fact that instead of talking about how embarrassing it is that a LeBron James team with Anthony Davis co-pilot getting swept in the Western Conference Finals has not been talked about for an iota since LeBron James sprinkled some seeds of doubt that he may retire this season. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Congratulations to LeBron James for controlling the media narrative yet again. Um, I mean, just textbook manipulation. Because here's the thing, Bob. Here's the thing.
Yep.
LeBron James is a little over 2 years away. Little over 2 years away. No, a year and a half away from playing with his son in the NBA. He's a season
Yep.
away. A season away.
Yep.
LeBron James, at 38
Yep.
years old, is still a top 10 player in the league, Bob.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He may not be able to single-handedly put the team on his back like he did, in the NBA Finals with the Cavs when they came back from 3-1 against the Warriors.
Sure.
Or in the early days of his career in his prime when he was dropping 40-point performances,
Yep.
scoring every point in the fourth quarter to knock the Pistons out of the Eastern Conference Finals and end their dynasty. He may not do that anymore.
Yes.
He may not do that anymore. But he's still unquestionably a top 10 player in the league that any team would be lucky to have. All I'm saying is that he could take the year off next year. He's going to play with Bronny. There's no question. I mean, he's only 2 years away. I would not be surprised if he takes the year off to watch Bronny play at USC, enjoy some free time, get some workouts in, and then say, all right, whoever drafts Bronny gets me too. Would not surprise me in the slightest, because LeBron James is a narcissistic arse. But let's be real, Bob. LeBron James, we have not seen the end of LeBron James, and again, just the master of media controlling.
Yeah, Derek.
I mean,
I'm
look
gonna
at me.
tell you this.
Look at me. This whole time I was talking about his retirement and didn't even talk about how disgusting it was he got swept. He's even got me wrapped up into it, Bob.
Yeah. In terms of the retirement thing, I put the chances of him retiring at exactly 0%. Um, I'm with you on that, Derek. There's no way we've seen the end of LeBron. I can understand partially why he would say that he's got some things to think about this season because he definitely does in terms of the fact that he has a lot of he has off-season surgery definitely ahead of him, um, which I think kind of got brushed aside a lot in the playoffs. I mean, that was a man who was playing on what two physicians apparently were reported and told him was a season-ending injury.
Yeah, of course. I mean, LeBron James has Ben Roethlisberger syndrome,
Re-
Bob. Come on, let's be
Rep-
real here. Let's be real here. LeBron James is the Ben Roethlisberger of the NBA when it comes to coming back from and playing through disastrous career-ending injuries left and right. I mean, LeBron James has never had an injury that wasn't career-ending or that he came
oh
back
my
from at a superhuman timeline. I mean, let's keep it 100 here.
I mean,
But he was
I
playing
can only
injured. He was playing injured. The foot was clearly an issue. I'll give him that. But LeBron James always does have a way of letting it leak out afterwards that he was playing through significant traumatic pain.
I mean, you might be right about that, but I mean, at least with this time, it was kind of a known thing going into the playoffs. I mean, pretty much everybody knew that it was a some sort of. I mean, how serious? I don't know. I can't speak to that. I can only go based on what the reports were saying. But he was playing through some sort of injury. They he's definitely going to play next season or at some point in the future, if it's not next season, maybe he has to get surgery next year and he misses a good portion of the season. I don't know. Maybe he gets it in the off season and he can make it back by the start of next season. I also wouldn't be surprised about that either. But it's really going to be. I'm very, very much intrigued by a number of things. Number one, the whole Bronny situation, because he's said that for years. He's going to play with Bronny, which is why I'm putting it 0%, Derek. I'm with you. I'm 100% in agreement on calling malarkey on retirement. There's going to be no retirement. I can't handle retirement from LeBron James because I don't think I know what to do with myself from the NBA perspective if LeBron retired.
I mean, Bob, we're only a couple of years away. It's going to be a reality in the near future.
I know, but it's Derek. I mean that just it's like Tom Brady retiring. It's just an end of an era. I mean, it's just an end. Like love him, hate him, whatever it is. You have to acknowledge that when that day comes, it will be the end of an era, and the NBA will be a lesser place because he will not be in the NBA. But
Side note before you continue, it still doesn't feel like Tom Brady's retired. Like I won't
no,
believe it until week 1.
no, no, it doesn't feel like that. Um, but in terms of the series, um, yeah, I mean Denver was very, very good, and it's no slights to the Lakers, who I think should have been able to pull out at least one or two of those games. They were tight games. Every single one of those games, I think, was pretty much competitive
Game 4
for
came
at
down
least
to the wire.
for at least majority of the game. Game 4 came right down to the wire. I got a chance to watch a lot of that one. Um,
LeBron.
you know, Herculean effort from LeBron in the first half of the game. Um,
Yeah, what was
and
he
then
like? 14.
30 points, 31 points or something in the first half of
Yeah,
the game.
he was like 11 of 14 or something crazy from the field in the first half. It was nuts. It was
And the
vintage LeBron.
and the three and the thing is, it's going to be a bad day for you if the three ball starts falling for LeBron James. If the three ball starts falling,
Early and
you're in
often.
trouble.
Early and often.
You're in big trouble because that that just builds the confidence like no other. Not only is it just a three ball, which is defeating for anybody to face, but then all of a sudden you gotta respect it, and he's driving by like a 260-pound freight train, and throwing it down on your head. Now in the second half, it was a different story. You know, didn't have quite the same impact. I mean, it came down to the big moments at the end, some big moments at the end where he wasn't able to put the ball in the basket. Um, and Anthony Davis kind of came along. He had a really, really weak first half, and then he kind of came along. The box score wasn't pretty for him. Um, Overall, I mean, should have been a sweep, no. But at the end of the day, I'm just still kind of shocked as a Lakers fan, kind of at this point that this this team even made it to this point, Derek. Not to say that I'm giving out participation trophies because you don't. The goal was a championship, and that was what I was hoping for. However, when the team was 13th in the West, just it seemed like 2 weeks ago, and then somehow made it to in the play-in game, and now somehow made it to a Western Conference Finals. When just a second ago they had Russell Westbrook, who was bricking threes left and right.
That was the key. That was
It
the
was
key,
quite
Bob.
it was quite a turnaround. Um, Really, really excited for the off season because obviously a lot of trade rumors, a lot of signings have been floating in the air already, and we'll have plenty of pods to talk about those, I'm sure. Um, but very, 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 very excited to see what happens. LeBron not retiring, Derek. Book it. Not gonna happen. He. It was a smart. You got to give it to LeBron. He's a smart guy,
He's a media
and
savant. I
and
told you.
and while certainly a lot of people were discussing, certainly the LeBron haters of the world have been bringing up the sweep left and right, and there's certainly plenty of them out there. You see it all over Twitter if you want to go looking for it. but certainly, mentioning the potential retirement, which I mean has some legs to it in the sense that he's like 40 years old now and is suffered probably what's going to need to be require a surgery in the offseason injury. Normally at that point, you kind of think about hanging it up, but it's LeBron James. And as he said himself, I'm still probably better than 90% of the league, maybe 95. So I might have to consider not hanging it up and coming back and trying to win another championship. But the NBA fans, unfortunately, I'm going to say it, were robbed of an LA Lakers Boston Celtics
Absolutely not.
final
Absolutely, Bob. I'm going to
that
cut you off right there, Bob. I'm
that
going to cut you off.
everybody wanted to see, but we're not going to see.
Nobody wanted to see that. Absolutely,
Everybody did.
absolutely nobody wanted to see that. And by absolutely nobody, I mean
You
me.
mean
I mean me. That would have been nightmare scenario, Bob. I mean, come on, Bob. This is a Nikola Jokic podcast.
I do like the Joker. I do like the Joker.
I mean, NBA fantasy legend, Bob, Nikola Jokic.
Which I do want to point out. Actually, I'm glad that you reminded me of this, Derek. What is up with Jamal Murray shooting like 17% field goal percentage better against the LA Lakers than he was against? He was never looking like hot garbage, but there were a lot of points where he was looking a lot worse than he was against us. Thank you very much, Jamal Murray. And then, and of course, Nikola Jokic shooting some of the most insane trick shot, fadeaway, fall away garbage that I've ever seen. Somehow going in. I
Uh,
mean, I've seen LeBron hit a lot of those type of shots and it sink people. So it was kind of sad to be on the receiving end of some bull jive.
yeah,
I'm gonna say
I was, I
that
was,
that sunk us.
I was saying it in a couple different, or in a different group chat. I never thought I'd see a more talented big man than Dirk. I thought Dirk would be the premier stretch big who could
Yeah,
do it all. And Nikola Jokic makes Dirk look like a D2 player with how just insanely talented Jokic is. I mean, they literally run the offense through him. That fourth quarter in game three,
yeah,
he was literally bringing the ball up the court and playing two man with Jamal Murray, who was the one posting up and then, making screens and making other plays. Like, those two alone can run an entire offense by themselves with Jokic playing point guard. It's absolutely ridiculous. And yes, the circus shots that he hits, I mean, he just yeets it up there in every
the
single
highest
time.
arcing stuff you've ever seen.
I mean,
And
I thought Dirk's arc was crazy high. I'm surprised Jokic hasn't hit the scoreboard yet with how high he launches that up there.
and another unsung hero for the Nuggets, I got to mention, Aaron Gordon is the most annoying player
100%.
to play against. I mean, this he's just built like a brick house. I mean, it's only he's in a lot of ways he reminds me a lot of LeBron, but he's just tall. He's just a little bit taller, and the guy like almost won a dunk contest. Like this
Should have
guy,
won a dunk contest. Was robbed from a dunk contest.
like the athleticism this guy possesses is just absolutely insane. And people forget that this guy was kind of tearing it up for the Orlando Magic for some time before he's kind of embraced his role as, I won't call it a sixth man, but it kind of feels like it at times for the Nuggets with all the players that
He's
they've got.
definitely not a focal point of the offense.
Sure, but the amount of things that he can do for you, in terms of like not only the rebounding but the defense that he plays, and the amount of like slashing that I was seeing out of him, just backdoor cuts and just getting these high lobs.
He's a pain.
It's a matchup nightmare.
That the Miami Heat certainly do not have an answer for, which is why, again,
No,
if you believe the Miami Heat will win the series, get your Nuggets futures in now because the value is only going to tank once they win Game 6. Because as good as Jimmy Butler is, Bam is not stopping Nikola Jokic. I don't even know who the Heat's 4 is, but Aaron Gordon is going to
He's
be a
not
nightmare.
stopping Aaron Gordon, and he's not stopping Michael Porter Jr. at all of 6'11".
Correct.
If Michael Porter Jr., Derek, could show up and be a 20-point per game score consistently for this team, it would be as close to unbeatable as I've seen, because the amount of like height this team has is just
Extremely
actually gross.
lengthy. Yeah.
It's actually gross. I mean, you've got your center, who's just Nikola Jokic. You got Aaron Gordon. You got MPJ. And then you got
KCP
whoever
is
else you're throwing
6'5".
out there. Yeah, KCP, very lengthy.
Bruce
And
Brown,
suddenly
6'9" wingspan.
Suddenly showing up, dropping 20 in some games. Derek, I was so disgusted, and there was none of this behavior when he played for LeBron just 2 seconds ago. Derek, let's not forget
Also none of this behavior when he played for the Detroit Pistons, Bob. None of it.
Correct. None of that behavior. And now and then Jamal Murray, who's just cooking with absolute grease right now, can't do anything wrong.
And then you've got Bruce Brown, defensive pest with the 6'9" wingspan.
Three-point savant, Bruce Brown.
Correct. Pistons legend, Bruce Brown.
It's very, 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 and we didn't even mention. I'm sure there's a bunch of other guys on the bench that could be very, very pesky.
Yeah.
But they don't need them because guess what? All those guys are just that good. So it's going to be a tough out for whoever it is. If it ends up being the one seeds playing each other, I think it'll be for a better series. But I'm with you, Derek. The Miami Heat, I think, are going to put the nail in the coffin here.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk very much baseball, Bob. Not a whole lot to talk about when Dennis isn't here. I will say this. I'm pretty sure the Cincinnati Reds have fallen into last place finally in the NL Central. They have. They have fallen to 21 and 29, which is last place in the Central. But get this, Bob. Last place in the Central only puts you 6 games behind first place because the Milwaukee Brewers are still stuck at 27 and 23. So an absolute logjam in the NL Central. The Chicago Cubs still the definition of mid, 22 and 27, 4.5 back of first place, even with their terrible losing streak. Somehow they still haven't been buried yet. Bob, absolutely disgusting. And then you have the Detroit Tigers sitting in not 5th, not 4th, not 3rd, but standalone second place, 2 games behind the Minnesota Twins at 23 and 25. A sub 500 record is good enough for second in the AL Central, taking 2 out of 3 from the Kansas City Royals after they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. Just mind-boggling. And then they took 7-2 victory from the White Sox today, and they get the White Sox 7 times in 10 games. A very, very, very important 10-game stretch here with the Rangers sandwiched in between. And they could make some serious ground. The Minnesota Twins will be playing the Toronto Blue Jays in a 3-game series, as well as the Houston Astros in a 3-game series. They get a 4-game series with the Guardians, then 3 with the Rays, and 3 more with the Blue Jays. So the Minnesota Twins, absolute gauntlet of a schedule coming up. The Detroit Tigers have absolutely been deadly in terms of games within the division. I mean, taking 2 out of 3 from the Guardians just a couple weeks ago. Bob, the Detroit Tigers somehow, someway are slowly pulling themselves out of the depths of the rebuild, and actually are fielding a pretty competitive baseball team.
Yeah, and a couple of keys I'll talk about with this team. Bats that are not completely asleep would be a start. It's crazy what this team can accomplish when we're putting up more than 2 runs a game. Like you said, 7-2 today. Because the recipe for the Detroit Tigers has been always this team and the teams of recent memory has been around the pitching. If the pitching has been adequate, the starters shaky with injury, but sometimes they'll give you a good performance. The bullpen has been stellar, coming in, shutting the door. The Foley Lang combination of the 8th and 9th is just been
Deadly.
lethal. And we've gotten some good long relief innings out of a number of guys. Um, Chris Fetter, the pitching coach, working hard and getting the job done. Erod has been looking very, very good. Unfortunately, tomorrow we're fielding Joey Wentz, who has been the disaster area of the lineup and wouldn't be in the rotation had we not had been literally filling the Tommy John Infirmary ward at the Detroit hospital. But when you've got some guys that were literally not even on the roster last year and coming up and putting into their timely at bats, and Spencer Torkelson not going 0 for 4 every game, and Riley Green actually looking like a somewhat worthy center fielder out there or outfielder, you're going to have something on your hands. And I hate to say it, I really do, but imagine what this team would be if they weren't rostering a Miguel Cabrera, who just looks lost out there. Looks
He's old.
terrible.
He's old.
And it's sad. It's sad to see. It really is. But this man has been DHing and looking just it's been rough, Derek. It's been really, really rough for Miguel. One more year. But no, very exciting. And here's the thing. I mean, people forget that this Tigers team had to go through a gauntlet of a beginning of the season. I mean, they started out with just about every single hot team
Correct.
they could have started out with. I mean, they were playing the Orioles, if I'm not mistaken, like a bunch of times, and we all remember how hot they were. They got the Rays to open up the year, who didn't even lose a game until like 2 weeks into the year.
Correct.
I mean, and now they're starting to catch a little bit more of coming down to more average, more normalcy. And like you said, we've been very, very good against the division. One thing we cannot do is let the White Sox get any sort of confidence. That's the key, because the White Sox are besides, I mean, I guess you could say maybe the Guardians, but either the White Sox or the Guardians are really, really have the potential. We're kind of banking on, being competitive in this division. And it was kind of, I would say, an unwritten rule that the Royals and the Tigers were going to be the bottom feeders, and everybody else was kind of going to be fighting it out for it. But if you're the Tigers, you're 2 games out. You're saying to yourself, we're right here in this mix, and we cannot allow division rivals to get hot on our watch. And so,
No better way
I
to
think
do that than to beating them yourself.
you couldn't have said it better myself, Derek. What I don't want to see, what I'm very concerned may happen, though, Derek, and I won't say I don't want to see it because it's very subject to what happens, but I'm very interested to see what the potential trade deadline scenario looks for the Detroit Tigers. It is, and it's not upon us, and I know I'm kind of looking out a bit, and I shouldn't be projecting because this team's 2 games out of first, and they're right there. But looking into the year, everybody was saying for good reason. We got to try to trade A-Rod. We got to try to trade. We're rebuilding. We got to try to get assets. And now we have some assets that teams actually might seriously want. I mean, Erod looking very, very good. Alex Lang looking like an absolute stopper right now out of the bullpen. We've got some guys, especially pitching arms, that could be valuable on the open market. Do we sell those? What does Scott Harris want to do? Maybe do we add another bat to try to solidify what has been an okay lineup for the most part, but definitely a bat or 2 away, and see what we can do. So I'm very, very interested about that, and I hope that at least for a little bit we can have a stint at first place, because I think it's definitely possible with this next stretch of games coming up.
All I know, Bob, is that when Alex Faedo is chucking 10 strikeouts and giving up 2 runs,
Yes,
you're
Derek.
going to give yourself a chance to win the ball game. But, I mean, really, happy for all the Tigers performers who are playing really well. You just wish that Miguel Cabrera wasn't an absolute albatross of a contract. You wish Jonathan Scope could hit
Oh my God.
better than 222. Just a couple guys in there that, if they can even be mediocre, will be tremendous helps to the lineup. But I don't know how much longer AJ Hinch can actually,
Yes.
with good faith,
Yes.
with a good conscience, continue to give Miguel Cabrera at bats at DH.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, dude.
'cause, I mean, Bob, he's
We
hitting
need.
under 200. He's only hitting 40 percentage points better than I weigh currently, which is not good, not good.
And probably not more than he weighs, Derek. I'm going to be honest with that one.
That is 100% factual. Miguel Cabrera definitely weighs more than his current batting average. If Miguel Cabrera
Um,
weighs 176 pounds, I will eat 3 shoes.
I mean, it's tough because I mean today we DH Miguel Cabrera, and he actually did get 2 walks, which I'll give him credit for. But the thing is that our bench is just not the
Yeah,
depth
there's
is
nothing
not
there.
there. I mean, the thing that we maybe could do. I mean, if you didn't want to put Miguel Cabrera, you're just gonna have to eat Jonathan Scope in the lineup most of the days, which stinks. But you're gonna have to probably do that. What you could do is maybe get Zach Short some time at DH. He's looked okay, or maybe Jake Rogers. Another. Those 2 guys, between the 2 of them, have had some decent stretches of hot hitting. Zach Short actually pinch hit a night or 2 ago and actually hit a blast that brought us into the lead and won the game, I think. Um, but the depth is just weak right now, and that's what's killing us because we can't afford to really not play Scope and Miguel Cabrera both. It's kind of a lot of days we're playing both of them, and some days we can get away with playing one of them because we have to give them off days because they're old. So you know how it is, Derek. Tough scene.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around. Maybe Miguel just needs the weather to warm up a little bit, and he'll be able
Yes.
to swing a little looser. But he's definitely 3 steps slower than he used to be, and like you said earlier, will be very interesting to see what the Tigers do at the trade deadline. If I had to put, my 2 cents in on it right now,
Sure.
my guess is they do almost absolutely nothing. I'd have to look and see what the actual contract situation of all of their guys is. But if they really feel like they have a good core, and if they have certain relievers under contract for an extended period of time, if they have certain starters, cough Eduardo Rodriguez, cough, under contract for a certain period of time, I would see them be more inclined to keep those guys rather than deal them, unless they're getting near MLB level ready prospects in return. Otherwise, to me, it just doesn't make sense to make any significant moves. Certainly, Alex Lang is a guy that would fetch a big return, but also would be extremely valuable for your own team, assuming that you believe in the
Yes.
process that you're building, and that he would be a core piece of your bullpen moving forward. So, yes, will be very interesting to see what they do, but my guess is they will, for the majority, stand
Hold
pat,
serve.
and depending on, where they're at the deadline, maybe they have an expiring contract or two that they deal, that maybe they don't see an extension plan working out with those players. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, what goes on. But MLB season 25% of the way done, Bob. It's almost June 1st, and before we know it, the dog days of summer will be upon us. Bob, I don't really have any other big topics to cover. I think now is a great time to get into winners, losers, and right bench ballers. So, Bob, who is your winner of the week?
A really, 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 really tough one this week. I wanted to go with some players from my fantasy baseball team. Well, there wasn't very many of those for winner of the week, Derek. Let me tell you that much. Um, so what I think I'm going to do is go with the very, very obvious one, and that is going to be Live Golf. Live Golf, Dennis. I'm sorry I'm doing this to you because, well, actually, I'm not sure how sorry I am because you did kind of crap on him a lot, but every single high finish, every single first place win that they take, they get more and more legitimized, Derek. And when
They
the
do.
when the when the snowball gets rolling down the hill, Derek, the faster, the more it picks up speed, the more snow it gains to it. Pretty soon, you have a darn avalanche falling on you, and that could be what happens. Dennis, you better be quaking in your boots.
My winner of the week, Black Friday football. Bob, I'm sure you
Yep,
saw the news.
I did
The
see it.
Michigan State Spartans will be playing Penn State Black
At Ford
Friday
Field.
at Ford Field. At Ford
Yep.
Field. Bob, I wanted to get some of your thoughts on this. Obviously, season ticket holders will feel a certain type of way. Obviously, they'll be all for it because they do get that home game refunded. Others are a little disappointed that, senior day in Spartan Stadium is, not quite what it would be in a normal year given the circumstances. But the fact of the matter is, if you schedule a game on a Friday, nobody's going to be there. Straight up, nobody goes to Black Friday home football games the day after Thanksgiving. The students are all gone because they're all have gone home to be with their families for Thanksgiving. And that leaves what, 25%, 30% of your stadium just completely empty almost. And so to me, it makes sense that you can get some of the holdovers maybe from the Lions Thanksgiving game. You'll have obviously your MSU fans that were planning on going to the game anyway, and maybe there's MSU fans in Ohio that want to come up and take the short drive across the border to Detroit. My guess is it makes the game day experience much less empty if you for MSU to move their game to Ford Field. But I didn't know what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, I've saw a lot of stuff about the whole senior day thing and just moving it in general being inconvenient for a number of reasons. But I think that for a lot more reasons, and I think you're correct to label this a winner of the week, it makes sense to do this. You know, Detroit is just a much bigger travel destination, in the state, and especially around Thanksgiving time, like you mentioned, when Lansing and the campus in the greater Lansing area maybe not as full as it normally would be for a game of that magnitude. This is assuming that Michigan State is somewhat respectable, um,
Yeah, we
which
got plenty of time to talk about that.
maybe they won't be. Who knows?
Perhaps
Um,
perhaps they're just trying to get a week of preparation in for the Quick Lane Bowl. Perhaps.
Potentially, if that. Um, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it will be a much bigger draw um, at Ford Field at on that day in that place. I think this is probably the right move.
Yeah. Your loser, Bob.
My loser of the week is D'Angelo Russell. And D'Angelo Russell is the loser of the week because he played like Stain for most of the series against the Denver Nuggets. But I also saw nothing but slander being thrown this guy's way. I mean, the Twitter sphere was coming for D'Angelo Russell's head like nobody's business. And I would say that it was a bit overblown, and it was a little bit overblown, but he kind of deserved some of it because he was just not playing very well at all. Um, I'll give him credit for the fact that he did help the Lakers get to that point. However, he just kind of wet the bed when they needed him most in this series. Got benched in a lot of big moments. Ended up going with Dennis Schroeder most of the time instead of him, which worked to varying degrees. But now his future. It was a contract year for him, and now you kind of leave the end of the year with a little bit of a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Whereas one series ago, everybody was probably saying, "Let's bring back D'Angelo Russell." Now everybody's saying, he helped us get there, but is he really the guy that we can rely on for a long-term deal that's probably going to cost us a chunk of change because he's not a bum? So yeah, D'Angelo Russell.
My loser of the week are the Detroit Pistons. Last week, we talked about the lottery ball, but this is an entirely different reason. Bob, I don't know if you saw this. The Pistons made a substantial offer to Monty Williams, and it is presumed he rejected it.
Oh, what?
So Monty Williams, from the reports, appears to have no interest in coaching the Detroit Pistons. Um, and currently, Kevin Ollie is still a lead candidate for the head coaching job. So just
Derek.
absolute disastrous scenes. Tom Gores, please, we need you. He met with the three candidates, including Kevin Ollie, last week, I believe,
And
and
said they were bums.
pretty much the consensus is they were bums. They're going. I believe he's going to meet with them again this week. Hopefully, he says to Troy Weaver, "Find some new candidates, or you're fired." Because hiring Kevin Ollie would be a fireable offense, in my opinion. So, yeah, really, really tough scenes for us to lose out on the Monty Williams sweepstakes really before they even started. Already missed out on Ime Udoka as well. A lot of former NBA Coach of the Years out there. So hopefully we don't go with G League extraordinaire Kevin Ollie, because I would have to boycott the team until he was fired. Truly,
Derek, I think it's time we give Mike Budenholzer a call.
I don't see why not. I don't see why
And
not.
how is Monty Williams? Who's Monty Williams to be turning us down?
Exactly. Correct.
Derek?
The Phoenix Suns, as much as I love them as my second team, are a poverty franchise compared to the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons have won multiple NBA championships, Bob. What have the Phoenix
And
Suns done?
and also, what have the Houston Rockets done, Derek? Why
Well,
is Ime Udoka trying to run down there? The Houston is in literally the same exact position that we are, potentially even behind where we are.
I
Because
would argue behind.
I would argue that we have a lot more talent, and that if we get a piece or two, we are good, very, very, very competitive.
Correct.
And some quality coaching. But I think this is the right kind of situation, potentially for a coach like I mean, I would like to see Monty Williams. I'm not going to lie, but I think that a coach like Mike Budenholzer could be the move. Um, is he made by Giannis? I mean, probably yes, because he was. I mean, Giannis is just good, but at the same time, he's not the kind of guy that is. He's very much. I don't get Dwayne Casey vibes from Mike Budenholzer. I get a little bit better than that. I mean, he did win an NBA championship at least. I got to give him that credit for that. And he's actually an NBA coach, unlike the guy that we are currently leading for, who has never been an NBA coach.
Correct.
Derek, very concerning stuff. We need more candidates, and we need them now.
I couldn't agree
Is
more.
Steve Nash available? I might be willing to give Steve Nash a call. I'm not even joking.
I mean, I think it's hard to blame Steve Nash for what happened in Brooklyn. Just dysfunction all around. Uh,
Correct.
I don't actually know if Steve Nash is interested in coaching the NBA. I have no idea. Um, but hey, listen, Steve Nash, one of my all-time favorite players. I'd be okay with it. Couldn't be worse than Kevin Ollie, that's for sure. Bob, you're right bench baller.
Yes, Derek. Let me get that up real quick for you. Uh, we're gonna go to the MLB stratosphere with this one, and there's been a player that I've been eyeing up. Maybe I'm just giving trade secrets in here on the waivers of the fantasy baseball league, but I'm gonna go with Los Angeles Angels Mickey Moniak for my right bench baller of the week.
A
Mickey's
former
been
a
hot.
former very heralded prospect, by the way.
Correct. Which I was going to point out. literally picked up by the Angels off the scrap heap because he was a heralded prospect that flamed out. But guess what? We're starting to see maybe a small glimpse of why he was a heralded prospect. Because the guy so far through the season is hitting 419 with 4 dongs. And let's just say this, in his past 2 games, he's got 2 dongs. Uh, that is exactly what you want to see. And if you're a team like the LA Angels that is, you know, looking for anyone besides Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani to show up and give you some batting lift, why not a guy that was a former heralded prospect to potentially revive his career, Derek? I mean, I
Correct.
heard some people talk about this on Twitter. Guys looked hot. Got to give it to him. Truly a right bench baller. I mean, was literally nothing and then picked it up.
Correct. My right bench baller, former Detroit Tiger, Jamer Candelario.
Oh, Derek, no, I don't. I know where you're going with this, and it's gross.
Bob, did you see his stat line from last week?
I
571 average. 2 home runs, 5 RBI, 16 hits, 1 walk, and an on base plus slugging percentage of 1.586. A guy that couldn't hit a beach ball for Detroit, a guy that couldn't hit a. What's bigger than a beach ball? A meteor for the Chicago Cubs. All of a sudden hitting 500 for the Washington Nationals very much reminds me of how Isaac Paredes is doing for the Rays this year. Raking.
correct.
Just absolute disastrous
And
scenes.
most of that was against Detroit, which is even
Correct.
more grotesque because, and probably about as predictable as it gets because every single Detroit player that leaves Detroit, especially with the Tigers, ends up being absolutely the best thing since sliced bread. So, just disgusting.
Correct. Couple other honorable mentions, Bob, before we get into garbage time takes your money that I want to mention. Just some other big news. Happy retirement, Carmelo Anthony, Bob. Stay mellow. Carmelo Anthony officially retires after 19 seasons. One of the best. Do you think the New York Knicks retire his number 7?
I was I think there's a chance it happens. I was also wondering if the Nuggets would consider retiring his number, but I think it's the same number that Joker wears.
Yeah,
So
they
that
both
is
wore
going to be
15.
very very intriguing. Honestly, if you're the Knicks, you don't really have that many names to retire. Might not be a bad idea. Um, Actually, it's funny you mentioned Carmelo, because I was watching a video today by our good friend Barry,
Oh,
Derek,
jeez.
and Barry made a video recently about the 10 biggest NBA chokers of all time. Carmelo Anthony on the list
Oh, no.
for being one of the biggest chokers of all time. I highly recommend, if anybody, um, in this, if anybody's involved in the sports world somewhat, at least on the Twitter sphere, you know who I'm talking about when I say Barry.
Sports Talk Barry.
Sports Talk Barry. Yeah, I mean, one way to name him. Um, but check out his YouTube channel. Very very good page and very very quality content. I'm getting a lot of ideas for a lot of garbage time takes debates because this is the choker video was also a very good video. I recommend people check it out. But Carmelo Anthony was on there for better for worse, Derek.
Another honorable mention winner, Tom Brady, Bob. He has joined the Las Vegas Raiders as a minority owner. I think this puts a little, more credence to the fact that he's retired. Because I don't.
Oh no.
I mean, can you be a part owner and still play? I mean, imagine
Especially
if.
if you didn't play for that team.
Correct. I mean, Josh McDaniels, former offensive coordinator when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, Jimmy Garoppolo, his former backup, their current GM Dave Ziegler, also a Patriots, former personnel guy. Who knows? We may see Tom Brady suit up for the Las Vegas Raiders, Bob, and that would be absolutely hysterical.
It would be. I'm really looking forward to that if it happens.
And then last honorable mention winner, in a better late than never sort of situation. Bob, did you see the Lions brought Riley Patterson back to Detroit?
I did see that,
He never should
and
have been cut in the first place, but I'm glad to have him back.
yeah, I'm with you, Derek. I remember being very surprised that they did not bring him back.
Correct. So yeah, that's all I got for most of the big news. Brandon McManus also signed with the Jaguars after being surprisingly released from the Broncos. But a relatively slow news week in the NFL and other sports worlds this week. Bob, garbage time takes your money. I do not remember what last week's was, so let me pull it up. Oh, got a little peek behind the curtain there for the people on the YouTube. It was the Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. The Knights were favored, and the over-under was 5.5. I do not know off the top of my head what the score of game one was, but I feel like it was low scoring. 1 second. It was 4-3. I was dead wrong. So the over hit, and the Knights won. Bob with a clean 2 for 2 last week, taking the Knights and the over.
The empty
I
nets, Derek.
the they'll do it to you. The Dennis also goes 1 for 2. With me, he took the Knights in the under. I took Dallas in the over. So not too bad from the boys overall. But Bob, the clear winner, with a 2 for 2 week last week. What do you got for us?
We got just a one pick week this week. Uh, we're gonna go MLB World. For whatever reason, this game does not have a run line or over and under posted, but we're gonna go. We can't not do this game because the series only comes around every so often.
And
We're going
naturally,
Reds
Dennis is
Cubs.
not here for it.
Yeah, naturally Dennis is not here for it, but Dennis, we can't keep a good game off of garbage time takes your money. And it's going to be Reds Cubs at Wrigley. The Cubs are the favorite, I believe, tomorrow. Not that that really matters. We're just doing a money line pick anyway. Over under has, for whatever reason, I've checked FanDuel, I've checked CBS. No over under has been posted. But you know what? Let me see if I can get a prop bet for you here
Hey, that'll
while
work.
we're just sitting around. Um, Derek, can I get your initial thoughts on what you're seeing from the matchup um, before I get this prop bet here
Yeah,
going?
sure, I'll do some stalling for us. Here's the deal, Bob. Hunter Green, electric arm, but blows ours. Dennis can attest to that. Dude can chuck it with the best of them, but I don't think his ERA has been very good this year. Justin Steele, meanwhile, has been the epitome of consistency, the epitome of quality starts. Dude is a quality start machine. He's a sub 2.75 ERA for the season. Pretty sure in his last outing last Sunday, 6 innings, no runs, 2 hits against the Philadelphia Phillies in a game they eventually lost, but it was not due to Justin Steele's performance. A guy who can be a strikeout guy, can also be a put it in play type of guy. His curveball's got nasty spin, and I feel very good about the Cubs tomorrow, for better or worse. And
Yeah,
interestingly, Bob, I'm also looking for a run line. It's literally the only game tomorrow that does not yet have a posted run line.
and it's the early game, I believe. So very, very interesting. Um, Derek,
Yes.
we're actually gonna bring back an old fun one for the prop. We're gonna go odd or even number of runs scored tomorrow.
Mm. All right.
I'll give my quick take on how I think the game's gonna go. Uh, Dennis, I'm sorry. I'm very concerned for you. Hunter Green is just might be a flop. But the amount of heraldedness, if that's even a word, that Hunter Green had coming in to the league. I remember when he got called up, it was just like Dennis was just ecstatic. Um, and it's still early in his career. Maybe he can right the ship still. Very concerned for you tomorrow, Dennis. I'm going to go with the Cubs, who have, Christopher Morel didn't hit a dong, so that means they've cooled off. But I'm going to go with an even number of runs scored tomorrow. Actually, I don't know why I'm feeling even. Maybe a 6-2 ball game. Cubs.
Well, Bob, unfortunately, I'm also taking the Cubs in even. I was feeling like a 6-4, perhaps. I do think Hunter Green has actually posted pretty decent splits against the Cubs in years past, in starts past. I'm not entirely sure. But here's hoping that the Cubs' recent offensive successes will carry over into this one. I just put Dennis down for the Reds anyway, even though he's not here. I won't give him an odd or an even. But I think we can both agree that Dennis would likely take the Reds in this one.
I would agree.
All right, take it away.
At Garbage Time Takes on Instagram, at Garbage Time Takes on Twitter. You can find the link to our website in the description of this video below. We really, really appreciate the support on our videos recently. Feel free to share it and click that bell so you can get notifications when we do post. And of course, each one teach one. Share it with a friend if you know somebody that you think likes sports just as much as us. And feel free to leave us some ideas in the comments for segments to do in the future. I mean, a lot of major sports leagues wrapping up. We're going to have a little bit more time on our hands for some, dare I say, random segments, a little bit more fun. But even if they don't make the pod, maybe they'll make a Garbage Time Takes debates. You never know.
Couldn't have said it better myself, as always. Uh, yeah, a shame. Hopefully, Dennis will be here next week. He's been under the gun a little bit. Very feisty in the group chats, Bob. Dennis has been, he's been clapping back with frequently. But yeah, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, utilize the pyramid scheme. Because that's the only way we can get our channel to grow. Just some dudes talking shop. Bob, you had one thing to say.
One last thing. Want to issue an official statement from the pod, from you and I, Derek. Dennis, we know you're listening to this, and it'll probably be over by the time you do. But good luck. We're putting good vibes into the universe for you. We know you work very hard. The pod is behind you 100%, and we will attempt to be there tomorrow. But even if we cannot, we love you. Good luck.
Absolutely. Not only is the Garbage Time Takes podcast behind Dennis, but so are the viewers, our supporters, rooting Dennis on in spirit at the time of this recording, it's 10 p.m. Mountain. He's, T minus 9 hours away from beginning his defense, and I'm sure by the time he's watching this, he'll have already had his masters, granted to him. So, Dennis, good luck, even though we both know, all three of us know you don't need it. And to everyone else, we will see you on the next episode next week. Thanks so much for watching. In 3,
One.
peace.
Peace.